So welcome everyone to this night's Zero events. This is the latest in a very long-running series of explorations of different multi-user VR platforms, and we're very happy to be in Neos because Neos is one of the platforms that we got a peek at a long time ago, thanks to Joris and Medra, who gave us a little glimpse in there many months ago. But it's been too long, and we haven't had a proper community investigation. And so we rectified that crime, and thanks to Medra, we'll be looking at Neos in depth this evening. And so I'd like to thank him for his time, thank everyone for attending, and we'll be recording and sharing this session later. So first, Medra, would you briefly just kind of tell us a little bit about Neos for those who are not familiar with the platform?
Sure. Neos is kind of an interesting thing because it's not just a social platform, but it's also a development platform and many things much more. So I like to think of it as if you're using Unity, but then you can actually work inside Unity itself, code inside of it, and then hang out with others and build out all types of environments and tools and other things. So you can build custom software to games, to environments, to educational tools. There's a lot of options when you are using Neos. And so it's kind of like if you're thinking of VR chat, but with a lot more usability in terms of interactive and customization.
Great. And how long have you yourself been working in Neos? When did you first experience it, or how did you first discover it?
I was looking for free experiences in 2018 of July. And when I was looking at that, I found this, and I've been also I was working on a 360 experience and looking for something that I could import assets and just try out. And I found Neos. It was released officially in May. I found it in July of 2018, and I've been there since. I just was sold right when I could import models and see them visually right before my eyes. And that had been a dream, in computer graphics for over 20 years, that I could actually have my hands on the actual models themselves. And it's just been fantastic.
And so the most important question we'll get out of the way at the beginning. Were you a piece of toast?
No.
Or how did you grow into being a jam covered piece of toast?
It was kind of a joke. At first, it started off that I would just have nondescript avatars, even though I like costume making and I find that really fun, and the embodiment of it all just in real life is fantastic. This was like the C and the J represent Creator Jam, which is a event that I host and has a lot more to it, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I ended up wearing this, and people would look at me and say, "What the fuck are you?" or "What the hell?" And they would just be shocked. And it was the intensity of that shock was like, and it was usually positive. It wasn't bad at all, and it just made me laugh. And I was like, if people are gonna have that visceral reaction, this is a good avatar. And so been that since, and I'll probably have other embodiments eventually here and there, but this one stuck quite well, and finally got around to getting Visemes on this thing so I can take off the mouth, give it to others, wear it. It's nice. So yeah, that's the story of the toast.
That's great. I as a researcher, I can say objectively, it's one of the better avatars I've seen. I think
thank you.
That's measurable. And so the other big important question, just for the people who are here with us today, how can people join you if they want to jump into Neos now? How can they find you in that space?
The best way to do it is to let me know what your username is. I'll add you, and then what I'll do from there is add me as a contact. I'll see you pop in. Neos, I see Martin already, and I'll invite them. And so I can just click invite. Up in the corner, what you'll see is a little. Yep, there you'll see it.
I saw it already. Okay.
Yep, it'll pop up, and then you can click on in the link, and then it'll say join, and you can join in. This is what's called a public session, but hidden. So that way anyone can join. If you, like, for instance, Martin, if you were friends with someone in here, but I wasn't, and you wanted to do it like while I was talking or something, you could just invite someone in. And it's really fantastic way to hide the world from others, but not make it truly private.
Yeah, I have in the last weeks when I was myself there, I have been part on and off an event called Virtual Germany, And the main
That's right.
initiator, he gave us the introduction to the ride system, what was kind of new. And I have as well like Friends Plus, means like friends of friends
That one too.
can join. Yeah, that's that, as I understood, that's the system somehow. It's a nice system.
That one's good too. I'm using this one to be a little bit more robust, because then it would be like friends of friends can invite. That is a good one. They grabbed that idea from VR chat, which is a good one. Like when people would open up a portal and then you could go in, and then friends of the friends could go in and visit as well. That's a newer feature.
All right, great. So anyone who wants to join Medra, now is the time to do that, but I think you can also, of course, do it later. So Medra, for those of us who are in Zoom or who are going to be watching this later, can you give us kind of, I don't know, a little brief demonstration of just some of the creative potential that is kind of accessible to newbies, you know, people who are they've heard of Neos, they've heard of what you can do, but they haven't been in there before. So what's some of the first things that they maybe can do?
Okay, I was going to show that with more of a class, but I can run into it right now. We have a classroom setting. I'll show you what I'm seeing.
Well, actually, I mean, if you prefer so let me don't let me break your plan or your structure. So tell us a little bit about this room that you're in first, actually, because you told me a bit about it before.
Sure thing. What I'll do is just kind of hide. I have some notes because I figured, based on the Eventbrite information, that you all wanted to kind of see like what Neos can do and where it's headed and things like that. And so I thought I'd kind of go through like a feature list, but we can make it a little bit more. And then we'd end up exploring through some worlds depending on time and everything else. So this is called Ovation. This is by one of my favorite world builders named Gawawawa. And let's go into fly. Yeah, I'm in fly mode already. And it's just it's a beautiful world. It's not too heavy, which is important for if we're going to have a bunch of people in here. Have some classical music playing. You can fly up through this area. There's also zero gravity for those that don't get motion sick. But what you're seeing right here is just a nice little world. There's not really too much to it. You could play a concert in here, but we didn't have tons of stage worlds that are open for the community. All right. So yeah, that's this environment. Unfortunately, I'll have to reset the camera every so often. But I thought you all might want to kind of know what I do and why, like, maybe I'm a community leader here, or why I've gotten to where I've just, besides the normal, you know, he hangs around here. And why I think that I'll be able to help you out with some of the organizational and event stuff we were talking about kind of earlier. Creator Jam represents a world building event that we do weekly, and it's been going on now for 103 weeks straight since June 2nd. These started off with people at about like 10 to 20 people for a 6 to 10 hour event. Now it's a 24-hour event. It's international. We have interpreters, and we have about 140 to 160 people come out. I've worked on like a competition within Neos that had about 200 participants and 80 entries, which would be like anywhere from, let's see, tools and worlds and other things to gadgets. And I also work in Neos professionally with a company called VRSys. And we've done things with like dealing with blockchain and e-voting, worked with the Cherokee Nation, dealt with like soccer, watching stuff, and the Austrian Railways. And so I do know about like virtual Germany because that's Alan in Alaska, and VRSys played a role in like helping out with that as well.
That's great. Medra, can you, so these creative jams, was this room here, was this part, or was this the result of a creative jam, or just something done more on the time of that particular world builder?
No. That was made by a particular world designer. They come in and visit sometimes. We'll probably, if we have time, we'll explore a Creator Jam world. I figured I'd go to one that was the first international one, using a tool that kind of answers the question that you're asking: what are tools that new users can use? And during one of the Creator Jams, someone had built a tool named Gohehepi, which is part of the Japanese community. And it's such a good building tool that people that were brand new that could barely handle any of the different controls were able to start building out an environment that quickly because of the grid snapping involved and how easy the tool was to use, which is kind of testament to Neos and the users being able to build off of each other's creations and turn it into something that's, if a platform's feeling a little bit oppressive, that they're able to kind of overcome some of those obstacles.
I mean, yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to really emphasize that point, because that's an unusual functionality of Neos, is that you can build tools. There are other creative platforms like Requiem that give you a tool, that give you the maker pen and stuff. And I think it's curious that there's kind of like a gun motif, like a glue gun motif that seems a little bit consistent across different creator, immersive creation use cases. But in Neos, you're able to build out tools and modify the functionality of tools. So I think that's when we talk about things, and some people are looking at how to test user designs, test out designs, prototype designs, and in some platforms they're able to visualize that. But yeah, again, curiously, there's an ability to actually add functionality on the fly, and I want to highlight that because it is a very uncommon feature that I don't know. There might be one or two others, but I can't think of anyone right now other than Neos that has that specific capability. So
yeah, Anyland might be the closest thing to it that I know of personally, and that's not even comparable. I mean, one thing about Neos is, unlike Rec Room, even though Rec Room's fantastic, is you have a number of things that you can build in Rec Room, and then you have your capping limit. Well, there's no capping limit here, so you can just break your world pretty quickly if you're not careful. I mean, if people were wanting to build, infinite vines, and maybe the vines kind of grow out of control and fill up everyone's RAM and crash the server. And we can guide kind of this conversation. I originally was thinking that you all might want to know like what can be done inside Neos, not in terms of tools, but just like the options and offerings. But if it's more about the customization of tools, we can kind of steer it towards that direction.
Well, I guess totally fine. Go with what your first impulse was, because maybe it's just my personal interest, so I don't want to guide it too far. Let's just see how the conversation goes. Yeah,
and feel free if anyone has questions during feel free to just like interrupt me or ask. Like I'm pretty much open. Let's go back to there. Okay, so I thought I'd talk about some key features of Neos. Are most people here unfamiliar with the key features of Neos?
Yeah, I think we can assume that someone watching the video later might be.
Okay, so some of the key features and one that's I think very, very prominent is the peer-to-peer hosting. So anyone that has a computer, has a VR headset, you don't even need a VR headset if you're in desktop mode. You can host out a world, and then everyone can use your internet connection to basically be hanging out at your house in a way, which is the world. And there's also something, and you were asking about this before, called headless. And a headless server is a type of server that is kind of like using Neos, but without all the VR capabilities. So that's why it's called headless, because it cuts out all of that graphical interface. And then you can use that to host worlds up based on a JSON file. And so that's currently at the moment, it's a pay tier with Patreon. A lot of things that you want to do that's extra or experimental within Neos, it has a pay tier, which actually makes sense versus like a decentral land where you're just buying land and doesn't make, so to have something where you're paying for hard drive space because you've been building so much that you need some more cloud space, makes sense. This headless server is what I use for all the creator jams, and I have it set up now in such a way that they have almost addresses kind of like URLs, and that you can traverse between. I'll actually show everyone here what that looks like. This one's using Turk and Kung Fu Monkey's portals. There's some other ones, and we'll end up, when we explore, we'll end up using these to go into some of the different worlds. And these are all hosted on separate servers. Some of them are sharing the same server that we're using, and that helps with some of the performance issues. So if someone were hosting on this world, it would be also my internet. Everyone else would be on my internet as well. We'd have some lag. Instead, we're either on a host that's, two of them are out in the West Coast US, one's in Europe. And we have a total of, I think, 7 different headless users.
Medra, could I ask a little bit more about that, just from like kind of a business
Sure.
perspective, because frequently one of the issues that companies have when they're working with these platforms for either an internal event or something is, and Hubs has this issue sometimes as well, that you know, you need to have it on a company's internal server system. And
Mhm.
is that something that Neos is capable of as well? If you were, how is that something that someone could say, I want to have Neos, but it's kind of cut off to the rest of the world. It's just internal,
Oh,
like
okay.
having it
Like
on
a
a server.
like a local area network, or are
Yeah.
you talking
Right.
about? Okay, yeah, you can do local area networks with. I think yours, you've done that before, haven't you? Within some classes, have you done any local area networks? I know Hamish has.
So it is possible then
Mhm.
to host your own, and that can maybe resolve one of the issues that some companies have about being able to have their data or employees' data in some way, you know, event data offsite.
Mhm. And eventually, I'd like to see some more stuff with that that's more robust within separate networks that are used exclusively for events themselves. So you don't have any of the people coming in from different worlds. I think that's something that's going to need to happen inside Neos. And there's a long thing that hopefully we'll have a time to have that minor conversation. Well, not minor, it's major, but that conversation on how we can bring events inside Neos and what are the next steps and how we can talk to Carol and say, like, these are our needs. There's money behind this. It's not just like, oh, we want this thing, that there's actual groups that want these things that would be able to pull in money into Neos and be able to possibly pay for some certain types of features. But that's a longer conversation.
There I would have a tiny question. Like,
Sure,
as I
sure.
was part of this Virtual Germany event,
Yeah.
And Alex was the person I had mainly contact with. He was the Neos organizer of this part of the event, because there was a Hubs part and the Neos part. And yeah, and he invested so much time and he did a really beautiful job. And then when he started, I think he had several headless running. I'm not entirely sure. But then, because it was meant to be an event for everyone in Germany who's actually into VR somehow, who has glasses, who are companies, and so on and so on. So, and it was just meant to be for 1.5 hours. So the people flushed in like crazy, and the session immediately, we had 4 sub-sessions, but it was laggy as crazy. It went down, because I don't know the numbers yet. I was asking Alex, I was like, man, was it thousands or 10,000s? I don't know how many people went in, but because it was really heavy. And I had even the impression, as I was connected with a 1 gigabit internet connection, I was normally, I'm very stable in the US, but we went with a user in a different world, and even the different worlds was laggy. Like,
were you still in that other one? Was that other world open still?
It didn't have anything to do with the Virtual Germany thing. But it was very heavy. Like, it were so many users tried to, it looked to me like I don't understand it, because normally I understand this peer-to-peer sharing. It shouldn't affect another world what is not connected to this Virtual Germany world. But it felt in the other world not so hard, like in the Virtual Germany world, but it felt as well that there's ballast going on over the network or something.
I can't answer to what issues like internally with the Azure networks and things like that, but what I found from a lot of experience, and stop me if I've told you all this already, but with Creator Jams, we're basically a load testing every week. What we're doing is building out worlds, but people can pretty much build whatever they want. And the reason I'm bringing this up is it's a sandbox, and because the sandbox is so heavy in terms of like the amount of people, we basically have anywhere from 10 to 20 people inside, and they're doing a lot of things. And in an event, people aren't spawning out a million things. And so basically, what I'm trying to say is, I think that there's a lot of optimizations that could have been done that would have helped. And you have to be very careful when building events inside Neos to be very mindful of its limitations right now. Some of those limitations are probably anywhere from 10 to 20 users, full body IK. If you have a full body, that actually is a limitation right now. The processing and calculations in that keeps increasing. A lot of times in a Creator Jam, that's one of the reasons why I'm in this kind of body. Actually, it's not just for looks. It's more performant in terms of I don't have even hand-eye K. So I'm just 3 objects. And so that processing requires less. So we usually, which I think becomes the ire of some people, they're cool with it and fine, but I say, okay, everyone get into flat avatars or get into your more performant avatar, and everyone gets into some kind of like 2-dimensional version or some silly thing that's more blocky and less crazy. And that helps with performance. But in a show, what you could do to kind of get around that is have the audience be in certain avatars that they could choose maybe beforehand, and that would be more performant. They did this with the Amadeus opera, and we'll actually go visit that sometime. And so what ends up happening is you can go into those and then have just maybe one person being more performant avatars, or the different cast being different full body avatars. So there's a lot of things to think about now. I'm going to be kind of skipping around on something to answer this question. So people are saying, well, what can I do?
No, it's all fine. I thank you. For the moment, we will have another time to dive deeper in that.
This is part of the conversation, because I think it's super duper important for people to know where Neos is headed. I'm kind of going to skip around on this part because I think it relates so well that it makes sense. So where's Neos headed? Right now we're in Beppu 1 physics. Eventually we'll be moving to Beppu 2 physics. I have no idea when these things are going to happen. I want to make sure that's clear. That it could be anywhere from, months from now to a year and something. I mean, the timeline on Neos, it's pretty quick iterations, but it's hard telling. And Beppu 2 physics, the first run of it won't be physics like we know it, where you throw stuff and it's cool, you can see things fall, or rigid bodies like things melting. It'll be more so culling and optimization, so that way, avatars, when there's a certain distance, don't have those calculations constantly going. There'll be stuff like that I think will increase. This is total guess. I want to make sure it's clear. I think it'll increase the amount of people to be able to visit InWorld by at least 5, maybe more. And that would bring you up to maybe like a 15 to 25 audience base with possibly full body. But that's just a guesstimate. Until Beppu 2 happens, it's hard telling.
Awesome. So can we move on to what's the next environment that you wanted to showcase? I think you had mentioned.
Yeah, sure. Let's see what some things that have been done inside. So if we'll all fly over here or walk, whatever, make sure you're in a collision type mode. And those of you that want to, you're welcome to just run into the world.
In the first Amadeus world, okay.
You can actually run through it. And what's beautiful about this, it's very much like a portal in VR chat. You can just walk through and automatically you're colliding into the portal.
If you wouldn't mind, Medra, taking a moment just to talk a little bit about this UI and maybe how it's, because I think the first impression for many people is that it's a lot of UI, but I know that it's actually a little easier to read than it was maybe 10 months ago or a year ago.
Are you in a world right now?
I can confirm that it's a lot, and just a small comment, that's the first app and I haven't been in Neos for a while, but for me, for some reason, it automatically translates the menu into the Russian interface. I had no idea they have Russian interface. Like, that's so
they have
weird.
multi-language. That was, they have 17 different languages.
And I don't see a way of switching it back to English.
I see you, and I'm gonna come visit you and I can say hello.
So, Alina, do you find it strange that it's in Russian?
I do, also because like I haven't seen other apps, so the translations sometimes are like a bit off for me at least. Yeah.
All right. Do we have everyone here? I'll turn off the UI stuff. There we are. Okay, let's all go. Let's see.
From our view, you're threatening people with a rather blunt butter knife.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah, it looks like I'm trying to stab. I guess I'm just waving. Let's see about eco. Let's go to eco. This.
Yep.
So, eco. Let's see.
And this is interesting, again, for people who have seen maybe other platforms, is that you don't have to wait for the entire entire world to load at once, because these worlds can be quite big. So these are loaded kind of asynchronously, I guess is the term, right? You know, which means that you don't spend a lot of time in a waiting room, like in
Yeah.
most other places. You're in the world, but it maybe takes some time for the rest of the world to catch up.
The reason I chose Echo versus there's a lot of other worlds that look more visually spectacular, but what's special about this one is this was built for a competition, but also it has, if you look down there, down below, little tiny creatures that were all built inside here, little NPCs. There we are, and they actually go around, mine things. You can move your hand to collide with them, and they choose either to mine or grab objects, and it kind of shows the amount of things that can be built in Neos. And not only that, but the person recorded videos inside here like we're recording now, and was able to kind of teach stuff. Now, I wouldn't have shown this just for that reason, but when we get to the classroom, there's another thing that's pretty fun, and it's this. You can build and so we'll end up playing with this tool. I think kind of give that to everyone to try out. And you can also scale self, for those of you that don't know that inside. If you're using Oculus, you'll note that scaling yourself a little bit too much, you might get floating point errors. But
can you talk a little bit about the tool? You referenced the tool, but it wasn't clear.
Yes. So this tool is called the Tree Tooltip. It was made by Anomalous, who built a large chunk of this, and it shows the type of custom tools that people can build. Albino, do you mind making a duplicate of that real quick? And thank you. And yeah, let's all just pop over here. Everyone that feels like it. We're gonna do this in a class, but why not here? Since feel free to grab a tree tool. This is gonna get out of hand quickly. But explaining the tool is one of the things that's beautiful about Neos is you can build custom tools. This tool wasn't actually the original one. I added in these templates, like people can use tooltips, and you can see that, oh my goodness. You can use tooltips to do different things. Oh, wow. I'm gonna go further away. There we are. And the tooltip has lasers, and usually you use that to like make something grabbable, ungrabbable. In this circumstance, in this case, you use the laser, which is called a raycast, to tell the tree where it's going to fall from the air. They decided to add their own voice, have it pitch shifted. So every time it falls, you have this kind of silly tree voice. But it's great for like if you want to quickly build out trees, you could kind of, and with the tool itself, you can change the range of size. So we could make all of these trees be kind of tiny. And note that they already have, they're grabbable. So that's what I made that on purpose. And you can, at the same time, scale them. Well, it should be. We'll see. I might not change that feature on it. Yeah.
So Medra, for this tool, was there a base tool, and that was then customized by like adding a prefab reference and the things? How was a tool like this made?
I think that's a good question to be able to. So the question is for everyone is, how was this tool made, and is there any specific templates to do something? This tree tool was made using something called a tooltip, and you can have it. There's just a basic tooltip that you can use to have the functionality of just laser pointing and some other things in raycasting. Let's go to the tooltip itself and open it up. I'm using a custom tooltip that you see. Oh, I love that one. That one's so nice. I love it. The manager is so good. It's so nice. But just like making tools, you use things called components inside Neos. This is a raw data tooltip, and all your tooltips will either be built from this or modified from another existing tooltip. And these are all within Neos is made up of components. So everything inside here is a set of components and values and other things, much like if you're used to looking at Unity, this is how things are built. Whether you can do it completely by hand or you can grab things that already exist like this and modify them. And just like the different avatars that people have customization on it, you can modify it using in-game scripting or this kind of stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that some of the people, I guess, in the group, if we could hear them, we can't hear them at the moment, but I think they would attest to the surprising ease that some people are able to make new tools, despite the fact that they may not be programmers or even very familiar with Unity.
Mm-hmm. And what's nice is Neos's skill set is scalable. Other than once you get over the interface, as far as some of the aspects, it's just like using Blender or Unity. When you after you get comfortable with that, then it's a matter of just how much you want to level up in different areas. And the community is very, very, very kind. If you were to say like working on blah, 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 and need help, you'd be surprised how many people come into the community just to say like, sorry, saw that you needed help. What do you need help with? Whether it's coding or other things. I would think that Joris could attest to the community being decently helpful. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the sheer amount of creativity that is unleashed by both being able to work with ready-made assets, and there's a very rich library of a lot of tools that you can use, but also to then further develop the tools that are already there. To my students and the professionals I work with is absolutely fantastic because it's endless in its possibilities, but it also, the first threshold gets lower and lower in its usage. So where a year ago, indeed, it was very high threshold to start building, I now, with my students within half a day, have them actually build whole worlds without any knowledge of programming or anything. And I think that's quite something.
And I'll have to agree with yours on the set building aspect of Neos. That's what we usually like to do in a jam, is just for people that are so intimidated by everything else that exists, just say, can you move something? Can you grab it? If you can do that, then you're already kind of way ahead. And so, yeah, I think that we should probably pop back into the main world. This was just mainly to show the tree tool off and a little bit of things. And we'll pop back. The main world, I brought it in a portal, so we don't have to worry about orbs this time. And this will take us directly back to the zero event space, or it should. Let's find out. Of course not. Okay, well, we can, okay, if you're running into problems like that, what we can do, let me get out the show the private UI. And of course, there's always some sort of, this is also a newer portal, so I'm not sure the exact problem on this one, but what I would suggest doing is to go to your top left part of your menu, or top right part of the menu, click on Leave World. It'll say really, and you click it twice, and that'll take you out, and you should return back to the previous world, assuming you didn't close it.
Now, can you measure?
Oh, sure.
Close to close a world. When you leave a world, the other world is still open. You mean as an instance, it's persists, or it's open on your computer? Because
these worlds are posted on the headless, they're staying persistently on until the headless is shut down. So if you stay in that world and you decide to jump to another world, unless it has what's called an auto kick, where it kicks someone after a certain amount of time, your body will stay there as a ghost shell. Kind of like what we're seeing here. I'll move this, kind of like what we see here. So Tim, what you would do is you go to your home menu and click Leave World, and that takes away the shell that's staying in this world and also hogging up some resources. And so in the upper right-hand corner, on Leave World, do you see it? Okay.
Are there different versions of Neos that can be compatible? I mean, that people can be joining without being forced to update to a particular.
Well, now we're getting in also the event needs, right? I know. Yep. All y'all know this. So, unless it's a special version, very, very special version, which is not usually the case, Neos, you can't really be in different versions. They're incompatible, which is very, very problematic when we talk about system control, like version control. So let's say you're on an experimental build of Neos, which kind of all builds of Neos, which, I mean, it's fantastic, works fantastic and it's wonderful, but as you can see, there's different stability issues sometimes. Thankfully, nothing here, but there can be issues that an event organizer would be very scared to have happen, that you wouldn't want. Not that I'd say that happens often, but if let's say an update happens and some aspect of avatars break, or some kind of main part of the systems or just aspect that you're going to be using in the show doesn't work, needs to be some kind of version control. And that's kind of when we're going to talk about things that need to happen for events to be inside here, as far as some extra asks, kind of like what you see in lots of software, where maybe there's a version that everyone uses, but maybe for businesses and other types, they have another version which are incompatible. But some other stuff for those of you that don't know, what are some other key features? There is group inventory and storage for the $36 tier. And that's really useful for schools and other groups. Schools, that's an extra amount because you'd have to pay for licensing within Neos. But for groups that want to work together, there is a way for you all to kind of have your shared inventory. And Neos, one thing that makes it special is it does have an inventory where you can store your objects. And the nice catch and really intelligent way to build the model of Neos is that once you fill up your storage space, which can be really easy to do once you start building and finding stuff you like, that that you reach the 1 gig past the 1 gig free, and then pay $1, and now you have 5 gigs of storage space. But to offset that, there's also one thing that's very neat, and for those of you that are new in here, I brought that here for you all, is there's a Creator Jam public folder. And what that is it's just one of many and many hundreds upon hundreds of folders. Let's get rid of the UI there. That is something that has thousands and thousands of public domain and attribution license assets. And you don't end up having to fill up your hard drive space with other people's stuff, that you can end up having it stored on there. Now, unfortunately, if the person decides to delete something that you liked, it was on their own space, so you might not be able to access it. And then it will add it. And this is the same type of functionality for when you send messages. One really cool feature in here is there's in-game messaging. You can send contacts via text, do it voice, or you can actually grab public folders and hit the plus button, and you could send objects to people, which is really fantastic.
Medra, are you saying, are there voice commands? Is that what you meant?
Yeah, there's basically voicemail. You just contact someone, you're like, here, I'll send Doris a message real quick. What did you? Ah, that's funny. Well, yeah, sure. And I'll send yours one too. So I type in their name and then click the record, and it puts a whisper bubble, which is another wonderful feature in here that you can, if there's too much noise, not only can you turn down users audio per person, you can be in what's called a whisper sphere. So only you can hear me, and everyone else wouldn't be able to hear what I'm saying right now. So you could overlap whisper spheres to have a private conversation in world. But okay, I'm receiving Yoris's message. Hey, nice to see you, Yoris. And so it puts a whisper sphere around me, and then it sends the message. And you can see this in the private UI right here.
Yeah, it's a cool feature. The return of voicemail.
Yeah, it's nice when you're feeling really lazy and you don't want to type, especially when Neos, the typing in VR is atrocious generally.
Medra, Alina here. I have a question. So I a little bit failed with the Russian interface. So give it more time. But when I was, for example, trying to add you as a friend, another option was to send you the currency, as far as I understand.
Yes.
Can you comment on that? What is the kind of the internal currency model, and how is it developing currently?
Okay. I guess I'll get into some of the key features. That is one of the key features is it uses in-game currency called NCR. And NCR is a type of thing where it's kind of Ethereum based, but eventually when there's a store, which is something that'll be eventually, same thing with like BetBoo2, it'll be much more useful, but you can send NCR as a gift to others. And you can actually, if you use some different types of systems, you could send the money out and have it converted into Ethereum. It's a little bit of a cumbersome process, but it is possible. Oh, Jason's online. I'll invite them in. Oop. Okay. And so people that are Patreon supporters, they also receive some NCR. And so that's kind of a way for people that are helping with the development get something back in return. And there's a white paper on NCR and everything. And I know people that do work
so it's
inside
like
here.
an internal cryptocurrency that is connected to Ethereum.
Exactly is.
That's
Yep.
interesting. Yeah, thanks.
And I don't remember the amount of batches that are planned, but we're currently on the 80th batch or something around there.
And how is it currently being used? You can send it as a gift, but are you seeing it in use transactionally? I mean, within the platform?
Not tons other than pay economy. Like you can send it as a gift. Like some people have things that you can click on in World, and then you can send it to a person. So you can make objects to say like, hey, donate to me and this or that, kind of like what you would with PayPal or something. But it's all in game. There is mainly in the Japanese community, they're doing quite a bit of things preparing for this. There's another currency inside here you might see, which is called KFC, which stands for completely fake currency. So it's just kind of a joke, but also at the same time, it's test. So that way you're not sending people your actual crypto, you're testing it out. And because KFC is such fun, like funny money to play with, there is casinos now inside Neos that you can put in. Actually, we should probably, yeah, let's do this. This will answer your question. There are ATMs. We'll go into one world later where we'll go into an ATM that will, you can put in a card or get a card generated, and it will allow you to put KFC on that card, and you can use that in casinos and game centers. Like there's an arcade that's been built that's opened, I think, on Sundays, and you can go visit like a claw machine. You can put in spend KFC, and so they're basically building everything up so that when that in-game economy is ready, they can just use NCR.
That's exciting. Yeah, I think that would be worth taking a look if we can fit that in.
Yeah, I'll show you the ATM. I'm not sure if I can get to work. I haven't played with it except for at a casino a long time ago. But I'll show you the world where the person that made that and some other tools inside here, they've been doing fantastic stuff that we'll end up seeing. There we are. This one will take a little while to load. And this was built out in about 3 to 5 hours by about 8 people, and they were using a tooltip. Okay.
And this is a good example of that phenomenon where you don't really know what other people see in a mediated reality, because you understand that they're probably at a different point in the load cycle. So yeah, there's always that thing when you're in VR with somebody else that you have to kind of confirm that you both are seeing and hearing the same things. There's a commonality because it's not always guaranteed. And this loading cycle is just an obvious example of that as well.
So, question: What world did you guys jump into?
We jumped into Not Sims.
Not Sims. All right. See you soon.
And inside here,
yeah,
the reason I showed it is there's a couple of different things going on. You see some NPCs, and one thing that's really exciting. So there's NPCs in here. They're using a tip for building, and this also has the in-game KFC that you can withdraw, basic and bank transfer. So I have to actually use an API outside of Neos. So it have to be someone that's trusted. And I need to figure out how to make it. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to get a card here. I know, oh, there, deposit. Yeah, deposit. So I need to click a deposit. Yeah, you have to reset IP, and then I'm going to send some KFC or NCR, but I have 1 million KFC. It was a joke, and now I have 1 million KFC. So I send it to them, to this NJ bank, and have to trust that they're gonna not steal my NC or my KFC. They're sending it. It should process, I think, a card. I think this is going to be a test. There we go. Oh, just sent a tip. Let's see. So it just said I can close the window. Am I going to get a? So let's see. Withdraw. Maybe oh, this is in Japanese. So I'm not 100% sure on how this one works. There's ones that I think are multilingual.
But that's interesting that you have different, linguistic almost geographies in here. Because of the customizability of the platform and the worlds. That's interesting to see that you can go to a place in Neos and not be able to understand how things work because of language.
I'm glad you brought that up about language barriers, that we wouldn't have to be able to do multilingual things without some special tools that people built inside and outside Neos to communicate with each other. One's in Azure service. And I'll open that up to show y'all. I have to change into a different body for it. It's a translation tool. There's 2 of them. One uses Google Translate. This one's Azure that you can use for free for 5 hours. And this one was made by Anomalous. So I'll show it kind of a version of myself in front of you all so you can see it. And then it'll take a minute to load in, I guess. There we are. So it might be difficult. Let's use something that has contrast behind it. But this translates immediately. I have to set up one more thing in the browser and we should be good. There we are. This is a test.
So it's doing like an image recognition.
Is it mirror mode? Do I need to flip the mirror?
It's in mirror mode, but
thanks. I can flip it. Here. How's that? Is that better?
Thanks. I can flip it here. Yeah.
There we go. And so this is, you can change this to many other languages. I'd have to change that also in browser.
So that's interesting. Yeah, just to see a platform that has a community that both needs and is able to create.
The character is not shareable. So those of you that are grabbing it, just you got to ask if you'd like to use it. Okay, but yeah, so I wanted to kind of show that there is translation capabilities, which is really, really special and interesting. But mainly this one, wanted to show just kind of the builder tips. This is all like the ground and everything are actually pieces and components that are snappable, including this. So this is a mixture of importing objects and assets and then using the snapping tool. So if everyone would leave this world, we'll go to the classroom if that want to work. If not, we'll just build it inside Amadeus. I'm totally fine with that. Hello, everybody. This is a bit more formal. I can change different modes with my voice. I'll show you in the menu system. And then what we're going to do is over near the tables, there are 2 tips, but we're just going to use the green one. And I'll show you how to use it. It's a little bit confusing at first, just for one little aspect. And then from there, what's nice about this is actually there's different cameras that you can set up in here with anchors. So you can see this is preset cameras. And I'll go back to my smooth point of view. So this tip, we're going to look at go ahead, hey piece tip. The way you use this is with your radio menu. If you have the tip equipped, oh, y'all are awesome. Then click the radio menu twice and select like a wall. And it would give you a private menu that only you can see, or a floor. And what you do is when you click it twice, your radio menu, tap it very quickly twice. And I'll show you, Tim, it's this tooltip right here. You would shoot it. I would suggest shooting it first, like with your laser, and then, so shoot and hit equip, like select equip. So shoot it with the laser and then select equip. So press trigger to shoot it with your primary and then select equip. Yes. Here you go.
Yep.
This is the tip we want to use. So if you'd unequip that one.
Oh, okay.
And then if you'd shoot that one, I would suggest shooting it so that way it stays equipped on your hand. Anyone else need help grabbing that? Do you mind? Those of you that are trying, let's see, make sure to.
It's impressive to see a classroom set up specifically to learn some basic creative functionalities in Neos, because I think Rec Room now has kind of a welcome center, which is been kind of a godsend, but I don't know to what extent, I haven't seen it, to what extent the welcome center has like a kind of a classroom structure set up for their maker pen. I mean, and that's, as we said before, like aside from AnyLand, probably the closest creative platform, you know, to Neos would be Rec Room. I mean, obviously very, very different in basically every way except that you can kind of dynamically create inside the platform. But you know, it too has a pretty significant learning curve. But like I said, it's just great to see the Neos. Then now, is this, who made this classroom? Was this made by someone who, like you?
This was made by Circuitry and I. For we've taught the Cherokee Nation in an older version of this, and then recently we just had some metaverse classes where we showed how to use Neos to some users. But what's nice about this tip is you can duplicate it and notice how it snaps. So you can quickly build out a floor. You could change the textures on that floor pretty quickly. If you tap it twice, you can go to what's called a mesh baker tip. And if you shoot it with your primary, you'll see something flash. And then if you hit hold down secondary, this is kind of dangerous. You have to be careful. Let go, everything flashes. And now it's one piece, but it's not just one piece. You can duplicate them out. And so, and I'm not expecting everyone to understand like all the intricacies of it or not just yet, but more so just that it's possible.
So Medra,
sure.
These every weekend, right? Every weekend you're doing creative jams that people are.
Yep, creator jam. Yep, every weekend we do this using a different theme. This was one of the themes, using just this tool alone and letting people kind of build off of that tool in their own way. Martin, the radio menu that you're talking, Martin was asking about the radio menu, which is this menu. This is the one you can see like where it allows you to change your locomotion mode. Do you see that? Tap that twice while you have this tool in hand. Here you go. Now you just click equip. Now tap it twice and you'll see tap your radio menu twice really quickly like this. And see, I can see an interface. They can't see the interface that I have, but you would see one. Do you see that? Did you tap
I agree,
it twice?
Michael.
Really
it's really nice to see that Medra and some other people are really building classrooms, because we're having the same problem over and over again, where people need to first learn the basics. And we're basically reinventing the wheel every time. So there's more and more spaces now that people can enter to learn, which is really nice. Because more and more we notice that there are certain patterns of learning that you need to go through first before you feel empowered to actually build anything you want. So we're coming to more and more better understanding what kind of learning environments we need. But the community is very happy in building these kind of things. And that's also what I think makes Neos very special, is that they're really eager to sort of offer tools and offer possibilities and offer spaces to showcase how things work.
I would agree.
I mean, I can echo what you were talking about before, Medra and Joris, because Martin also referenced it. And I've met a number of other people. I met a geologist in Australia.
Yeah.
I've met educators in other countries as well who are, just not coming from a programming background, and they always find that one good Samaritan who kind of sells. I think what sells people on Neos is actually is that support that they get from somebody.
Yeah.
And so I've heard that story quite a handful of times now from very, very diverse group of people.
Yeah.
So it is a unique. Not to sell it. I'm not advocating something, but I would say that it's a unique value proposition that you can't quantify. It's not you can't put that on a website like, hey, we're friendly. But I would say from doing a lot of the events and talking to a lot of people, like educators in VR and stuff, that's a common theme. That there are good Samaritans, easy to find, and they really do kind of walk you through those early steps.
Yeah, we even have an educational science group here, people from universities and from art schools and from all sorts of educational institutes that are using actively Neos within their education. And we're also sharing with each other ways of learning and ways of educating within Neos. And then, of course, the Creator Jam that you just briefly asked Medra about, I think should be really foregrounded as one of the pivotal events that happens every week. Where now, Medra, maybe you can say how many people are joining by now, because that's quite amazing, actually.
Yeah, we have 150 to 160 people join. And that's up from last year where it was about 30 to 50. And of that, there's about 50 or 60 new users, which is kind of insane. And then we have about like 20 to 50 participants, depending on the type of jam and people's time and everything else. And yeah.
Yeah, it looks good.
There,
I think.
Yeah, thanks.
No, just to kind of, obviously, all of you who are in Neos, you're in a different world, so you can stay there as long as you guys want to. But just for the Zoom portion of it, the Zero events, I'd like to just kind of bring it to a close and just talk about, again, some of these, if you can kind of mention the different types of activities you maybe have seen, and some other people can chime in, Joris, because obviously he's seen some things, and some of the people in here have done some really amazing things actually on their own in here.
Okay, there's plenty of in-world games. You have like Murder, and there's a Ghost Talk, and like Among Us type maps. There's a really polished one called Cabin of Seasons, which is kind of a puzzler. But that's just like the games or like hangout spots, artistic experiences. The ones I think that would be of interest to you all generally would be especially things that like Jason, Joris, and others are doing. For instance, Junk, which was a, actually, do you mind describing Junk? I think it'd be better for Joris to describe Junk. I mean, if you're okay with that, to describe Junk and the HKU Expo, which I think is something that's uniquely interesting.
Yeah, so.
I would love that too.
Yeah, just very briefly, Jump was a mixed reality performance that we did both in a physical location in the Netherlands. It was with theater students and students from Games and Interaction and some professionals. And we had like a joint experience that we did both in Neos and in a physical studio. So there was live audience in physical location working with people in Neos being virtual characters. So I think that was a great example of almost like mixed reality theater. And then additionally, I asked the students to sort of share their process in the form of an actual exhibition. So there's an headless server now in Neos, which you can visit. And you can see their whole design process from beginning to end in some sort of like weird, surreal Guggenheim kind of contraption. So that's two examples from art, and I think Avinash can say something about the wonderful project that they're doing, which is also close to Freezer.
Unfortunately, we may not be able to hear Avinash because
here. Let me see if I can change your voice, see if that helps.
Or I can turn on the Zoom audio.
Yeah,
does that work?
So you guys can hear me now, right?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yes.
Okay, all good. So the Metamovie is a live immersive theater project that was created in Neos and takes place in Neos. So basically what we do is we have an entire world that was created in here where we have live actors who are spread across the world. I mean, we've got actors in New York, in South Africa, in Europe, who do a performance, but it's not really a performance. It's almost like role playing. It's like an interactive video game with a complete story. It's about an hour and 15 minutes long. We're trying to get it shorter. But people that are not used to, I know length is always an issue, but we try to make this very accessible to people that are not necessarily VR experts. So anyone could down the line come in. They are onboarded through part of that onboarding is happening through the MTC, the Metaverse Training Center, which will show you all of the basic controls and functionalities. And once you then get into the Metamovie, there's a group of actors that will explain the world to you. And you basically go on this real-time journey where you can be the hero in what is essentially a live action science fiction movie. Now, the interesting thing of us doing this in Neos is Neos allows us to pretty much do everything that we come up with, or that Jason comes up with as a creator. And the interesting thing is that the builders, the more advanced builders in the community, will never say no. They will always find a way to make things happen, which is amazing about
very true.
community. And with the desktop mode, because I know some of the people in the Zoom call are thinking about doing events and things like that. With the desktop mode improving, it means that even people that are not inside a headset can join and have part of this experience. So there's a lot of these different new features that are happening all the time in Neos that make it for us, make it the ideal persistent social environment to build something like this in.
I'm glad you brought that up. You can see in desktop mode, you can switch between characters there. Now I'm in third person mode. So they've really improved that quite a bit in a way that's very useful.
Medra,
But
did you just switch to desktop mode while you from like without
in VR? You can do it inside VR now. So you can switch back and forth between desktop mode. Hit F8 on your keyboard. I'm using a virtual keyboard to be able to do that, but I switch between it. And then if you hit F5, there's the POV, my POV. I don't have a mouse, so unfortunately, or I'd have to with me, but I could probably use WASD to move around. And
it's totally seamless, and it's fantastic because people can work from the outside, dragging and dropping stuff into Neos in a desktop mode, while others in VR can work in VR first person. I mean, that's a workflow that is really very productive.
Well, I would say it's very interesting to see an example where you can switch between desktop and headset without having to sign out and sign back in, because I think that's the standard requirement for every other platform I've seen. So that is an interesting feature that I'm not sure experientially, from like a performance, how useful that is for an audience to be able to, maybe for a performer to jump in and out, it's pretty useful. But from a work and collaboration sense, it's I see clear value in that, to be able to jump in and out without having to reload the application. That's an interesting feature. I hadn't seen that before.
If we're talking about ease of jumping in and out of Neos, there probably isn't a short topic that Medra maybe you could share some light on, because right now, if you want to get into Neos, you launch Steam and then you launch your Neos app. However, technically, in some of the social environments, we've seen social environments create a separate branch that is its own Steam application. Would there be, or are there down the line, be any options to have like present Neos as or a world in Neos as a direct app? Like with VR chat, you can send a link and then it launches VR chat into the world. How could this become easier for Neos down the line?
I'm glad you asked that. This is kind of the final, like one of the major aspects. Now you're talking about, there's two different things. One is a world link, like you're mentioning that you do, Martin, which is a world link that you can click on that takes you into Neos. But I think, if I'm correct, Avinash, what you're asking for is like a separate Steam app. Like, so you could, it's kind of like things that are made with Unity that you're saying, let's make this with Neos. So it's, made by Neos. And I think that that's one of the next stages in terms of Neos being able to be useful in a business and educational, other types of platforms in terms of events, because if you have some kind of separate build of Neos, that's the business stable build, that's that has certain iterations that are only updated, every month or every 6 months, then all of us users that are building all kinds of crazy things in here, make out the worlds, socialize, do all the fun things, and maybe even have crazy events, but with the knowledge that, something could go kaput. Like, I mean, you saw with the headless that there's some kind of minor thing. It's probably on my end slightly, but still having something that is for events is paramount. There's going to be Wave VR. Basically, we're having a large migration of Wave VR, and there's already events being made, produced inside here by Rue, JPhonics, and Tatsi. But one of the main organizers in Wave needs this. And so those of you that are interested in actually building inside here to use it for an event platform, we really need your assistance. If you think that there's money behind it, that you can actually say, hey, look, there's already some funding on it. If we can get everyone to be on board with here's a list of asks, and the main asks really are that build, there's among other things, we could really have a Neos that allows for events to be able to be inside here. That, I mean, there already can be, which is awesome, but to have it in such a way that some of the mild stability issues, which aren't always there, but they're cut off quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that's a good, maybe we can kind of close it on that last bit that, Medra, as you kind of said before, and you just touched on again, that that there is the possibility that clients who are looking to do things and looking at Neos as a potential solution, features or certain custom functionalities can be part of a negotiated package with an event.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, that's good enough because that's the platform. I mean, that's the business method, the business model that's been emerging with like VR chat and stuff like that. That they do. I can say that VR chat, for example, will sell as a service, as a feature, a hold on any updates for up to 6 days. You pay for each day that they promise not to update, so that it doesn't risk your event. And
interesting.
so that's an interesting. Yeah, I mean that's just an emerging model. Because practically these platforms like Neos and like VR chat were not designed for events; they were designed for creators and creative communities. So this is kind of a new type of use case, but it has to be. Again, it's just there has to be some incentive because obviously your focus as a platform is probably still on creators more so than it is on, event organizers per se.
True, but then again, having the events themselves also allow for the creators to have some kind of model to build off on besides what they're creating altogether. And when you're talking about that model, as far as the one to be able to pay for features in a way, that is something that's possible, like communicating with Carol to say, like, this is something I would like to see inside Neos, and then speccing it out, writing out the specifications, and then saying, like, what are the costs if I were to have something like that, which definitely takes away from some core development sometimes, but we have seen things like neural interface. I think it was Neuralink. I can't remember the name of it, but they actually funded that to be able to have some kind of Neos neural interface. And these are things that you'll see with other types of areas, not to mention the business licensing for being able to build out your own separate worlds. But yeah, it's definitely possible.
That's great. All right. Well, I mean, and it's a powerful platform. And Medra, I want to thank you on behalf of everyone who attended today and everyone who's going to watch later. Thank you very much for your time showing us just I think a glimpse, obviously, just a small portion of what
it was a fragment
being done and what can be done in Neos. So thank you again on behalf of everyone here. And I want to thank everyone who attended and everyone who's watching, and have a great night.
Thank you. I appreciate you all coming and visiting.